We deny the immaculate conception of virtue and affirm the necessity of social incarnation. One of my very favorite Unitarian Universalist quotes. Once more, we deny the immaculate conception of virtue and affirm the necessity of social incarnation. This was written by Reverend Dr. James Luther Adams, the most influential Unitarian Universalist theologian of the 20th century. It means, essentially, goodness does not just appear out of thin air in our world. We have to bring it into being. We need to do good in our world for there to be good in our world. This concept and so many others which formed the Unitarian Universalism which we have inherited from theologian and teacher James Luther Adams. Now, Adams lived from 1901 to 1994. He was a white man from Washington and was raised in a Christian fundamentalist family. His father was a farmer and a preacher, and Adams left the faith of his family. Finding himself while in higher education, he searched for beliefs that could be interrogated and upheld intellectually. It is perhaps no shock then that he found Unitarianism and shaped it, and arguably shaped other liberal religions significantly through his leadership in congregations in our denomination and through teaching many future leaders in divinity schools. Now, one of Adams' most important contributions was his concept of the 5 smooth stones of liberal religion, which are essentially 5 underlying principles of liberal religion. I see a couple of nods, so some of you have heard about this before. Now, the first smooth stone is openness to new truth. We are a living tradition. We need to be open to learning even from that which makes us uncomfortable. Number 2, freedom. We all here, and my folks online, choose freely to be and gather together in community. In this congregation, right? We're not forced to be here together. We choose to be here together. Number 3, justice. It is our duty, moral, ethical duty, to establish a just and loving community here and beyond. Number 4 was build institutions. For that is how we can organize and utilize our power together. And we must build institutions that use their power to create justice. Number 5 is hope. Our resources, which for some of us might be divine and some of us might be human and some of us might be both, inform us that there is real hope for a better world. Now, these 5 stones come from his article where he laid them out called Guiding Principles for a Free Faith. This is also the article where one of my favorite quotes that we heard earlier, we deny the immaculate conception of virtue and affirm the necessity of social incarnation, comes from. Now, here in this quote, and particularly with his 4th smooth stone about building institutions, he explains that we as liberal religions and we as Unitarian Universalists know that for goodness to come about in the world, we must make it happen. And furthermore, we must make it happen through social institutions and organizations that yield our collective power for good and for justice. He writes in this article, a faith in the commanding, sustaining, transforming reality is one that tries to shape history. Any other faith is thoroughly undependable. it is also, in the end, impotent. It is not a faith that molds history. It is a faith that enables history to crush humanity. Its ministry prepares people to adjust to the crushing by focusing on and salving the personal experiences of hurt. This we shall not do. We shall not pretend that our pain is disconnected from others, or that our gain is disconnected from others' pain. For ours is a faith that must use our institutions, our collected, gathered power for the good and justice of all. Ours is a faith that is determined to shape history and our community for the better, to find freedom and liberation for humans, not to allow humans to be crushed by history or by other systems and organizations that organize better than we do, right? Now we look to our shared history as Americans and can see clearly that organized power can make goodness in history and can make evil too. We turn to an example of Juneteenth. The reason that Juneteenth is a holiday is, of course, egregious. Chattel slavery having existed at all in our nation is horrifying, is a history and a pain that we still have to sit with as we work to shape a shared and collective future. And Black slaves in Galveston, Texas, not knowing that they were actually free American citizens for 2 whole years, is also egregious. The United States Army became necessary to ensure the laws set by the Emancipation Proclamation would in fact be followed and made reality. James Luther Adams reminds us we deny the Immaculate Conception of virtue and affirm the necessity of social incarnation. The United States Army, here in organized power that was utilized to ensure justice came to be, utilized to ensure that the law became, in fact, a social incarnation. It should not have required an army, and it should not have taken 2 years. And here we see a system, however belatedly, being organized, utilized, and sent off to ensure justice. And the reason Juneteenth is a holiday that I know about, a holiday that became a federal holiday in 2021, is because Black people, and largely Black women, organized and lobbied our national political representatives to make it so. Once again, we deny the Immaculate Conception of virtue and affirm the necessity of social incarnation. It was only because of people organizing together, forming organizations and institutions, that this goodness and justice, this national recognition of a holiday, became our reality. It ensured that more and more Americans learned this part of history that at least I had not been aware of until the holiday became a federal one. In our distant and recent history, we can see these examples of people organizing together and of institutions using their power to ensure that justice comes to us here in our world and in our communities. Now, we too, as a fellowship, just as ourselves and with friend and partner groups, and we too as individuals involved with other communities, we have the power and capacity to utilize our power and our organization to ensure justice and goodness become incarnate, become real right here in our world and in our communities, right? We see through these examples how institutions can either uphold injustice or create justice here in our world. So it's my hope today that these examples in African American history and in our shared American history can help to hold us accountable so we do not repeat past atrocities, and they can inspire us to know that we too can use our power and organizations to shape our history and our future, to bring about social incarnations of goodness and of virtue.